Yes. Yes. She just is like, "Can I hop on this government plane or not?" And it's just like Nicole, I think the chat is having trouble hearing you. I think they can hear me.
That's a
Sound?
problem.
Uh-huh. Hello, we can see your problems, chat. You cannot hear Nicole, but she is aware.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
I know we're on a little bit of a lag, but can you
Yes.
hear Nicole?
I don't know. Well, they could hear you. They heard you ask this question. I think they should be able to hear me. I was not seeing my audio levels before. I didn't think to look, but I am now seeing my audio levels. So I assume that once they catch up to us, they will hear me.
Yes.
Great.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Okay. I want to run that back again. So from the top, we are watching episode 2. I said some other stuff to introduce. It doesn't matter. I'm doing the plot synopsis right now for episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man. So, all over again. New Captain America, John Walker, does a Good Morning America appearance as part of his whole introductory tour. This is sort of a callback to like the first Captain America movie, because he also had to do a whole like rah-rah patriotism tour. Meanwhile, Bucky is watching this in horror. He's watching John Walker be on Good Morning America as part of Bucky's morning routine, I guess. So he goes, after his very depressing Good Morning America viewing, goes to confront Sam about giving up the shield. And Sam is like, yes, this blows, but I have like much bigger things to worry about. And Sam fills Bucky in on the whole, like the super strong flag smasher guy that we saw at the end of the previous episode. And Bucky just sort of arbitrarily invites himself onto Sam's mission to investigate. I think that is the thing where you heard Mari's half of us discussing. I think this is about
Yes.
where we discovered that there was an issue. Bucky, former wanted fugitive, deciding that he's going to hop onto Sam's government plane. The two of them eventually find and fight a group of flag smashers, and pretty quickly realizes that all of these guys have taken some version of the super soldier serum that gave Steve and Bucky their super strong powers. The fight is going really badly until Fake Cap shows up with his new sidekick. Sam and Bucky are not exactly thrilled to see him, but also they definitely did need the help. The four of them still lose, though, because Bucky is the only one who has superpowers. I mean, Sam does have his cool wings. Fake Cap has the shield, which is cool, but all of these people have superpowers, all of them. So they lose. The bad guys get away. Post-fight, Fake Cap offers Sam and Bucky a ride back to the airport and like tries to make nice and get them all to like be on one big team. They reluctantly get in the Jeep. Fake Cap's sidekick helpfully gives us like a bunch of info dumpy background, and I'm not even mad about the heavy-handed exposition because it's blip poli-sci, which is all I really want. Like, I can't say this was a great writing choice, but I don't care because I wanted it. Basically, Fake Cap is helping the Global Repatriation Council as they try to quash post-blip uprisings. But in addition to this sort of like military arm of the GRC to which Fake Cap and Friend belong, the GRC is also responsible for stuff like reinstating people's citizenship and social security numbers. And I have a lot to say about this, but we will move on because it's 2 lines of dialogue in the episode. Fake Cap tries to assure Sam and Bucky that he is not trying to replace Steve, but eventually still is like, I want Steve's wingman by his side. Like, I don't know. So he oversteps, puts his foot in his mouth, and the two of them are like, no, fuck this. And they bail on the Jeep. I guess they're gonna walk the rest of the way to the airport after all. Elsewhere, we see more of the Flag Smashers, and they exposit to us that the GRC only cares about the people who came back and not the ones who never left. Government people almost catch the Flag Smashers, but then one of them sacrifices himself so that the others can hop on a jet and fly away with all their weapons. That's what they were doing. They were stealing a bunch of weapons when the first fight happened. No, I don't know. It doesn't. Those things don't really seem to matter that much, as far as I can tell. Bucky tells Sam that he needs to, I think I maybe have this in a slightly different order, doesn't matter. Bucky tells Sam that he needs to introduce him to someone, by which Bucky means that he needs to go harass an old black man who he presumably tried to murder around the time of the Korean War. I don't know.
And he's just like, knock, knock, tell him the man from the cave is here. Like the man who tried to murder him. I mean, you know, call ahead maybe in that instance.
I don't know if that was really the best play, but so this man, Isaiah Bradley, was sent into North Korea because the US government had heard that Winter Soldier Bucky was there doing evil shit, and dun dun dun, Isaiah Bradley also has super soldier serum. Bucky came to him because now that they know, basically they're like, why the fuck are there all these people out there now with super soldier serum? This is bad. We need to figure out where this is coming from and, like, you know, stop more of them from being made, basically. And he's hoping that Isaiah Bradley can like help them figure this out. However, Isaiah is fucking pissed because not only does he rightfully hate Bucky, he's also not down to do shit for the US government, because after he came back from like doing his whole hero thing, he was locked up for 30 years and like experimented on stuff, and is, you know, he's just having a bad time and wants to be left alone and should be left alone. So after Isaiah has essentially told them to get fucked, they are out in the street, and Sam is like, okay, why did you wait until like we were just in our little spin-off show and there were no other Avengers around to help us to tell me about this other super soldier? And did anybody else ever know? And no. This information that Bucky has apparently been sitting on for 70 years, and probably somebody in the government has been sitting on for 70 years. Like if he was sent in, whatever. Anyway, this information is casually being revealed now that this man has been out there having super soldier serum since the Korean War. And they're like standing out in the street arguing, and because a black man and a white man are yelling at each other in the middle of the street, cops show up and start harassing Sam until they realize who he is. But it turns out that Bucky is the one who is actually under arrest, because there is a warrant out for his arrest because he missed one of his court-mandated therapy meetings. That's like that's a condition of his probation. Bucky's problems, however, are made to magically vanish by Fake Cap, who shows up to tell everybody that it was actually on his orders that Bucky was out in the field, and actually Bucky can't be held to a schedule anymore because of celebrity patriot magic. So even so, Bucky's therapist manages to force Bucky and Sam into a like couples therapy session as a condition of Bucky's release. This is not a necessary scene, it's just there for funsies. Outside, Fake Cap tries again to make them all a team, and Sam and Bucky are like, okay, but you have all these protocols and stuff that you have to follow because you're like a soldier, and like we're a freelancer and probably somebody for whom it's illegal to engage in any of this activity, but whatever.
Right.
I don't know, but we don't want to deal with all your protocols and stuff, so we're not going to be a team. And then Fate Cap is menacingly tells them to stay out of his way. Bucky realizes that they do have one last lead on the super soldier serum situation, and it is a shitty one, but Helmut Zemo, the villain from Captain America Civil War, is still alive and incarcerated, and so we cut to a quick shot of Zemo, and that is the end of the episode. Also, just like for context, because we are in the process of rewatching all of these things, Zemo is he is the villain of Civil War. He's like I don't know who is the villain of Civil War. There's a whole, we have a lot of
Tony Stark.
Yeah. But anyway, Zemo is the one who is like he does like fake Winter Soldier shit so that they catch and lock up Bucky, and then Zemo shows up and like has read this magic dictionary of how to hijack Bucky's brain, and at the end of the movie he tries to kill himself, and T'Challa's like, nah, you will do no such thing, and that's how he is conveniently still alive for them to go interrogate him on all of Hydra's secrets, basically, because like part of Zemo's whole thing was that he had done a ton of research on Hydra, and thus, whatever, Zemo has the Hydra knowledge, and so that's why they're gonna go and find him. Okay, so, catching up on the chat now.
Okay.
Sorry. Very much laugh crying at Disney-owned Marvel hyping Disney-owned ABC Good Morning America. That's also an excellent point. I mean, I'm still stuck on the idea of Bucky watching Good Morning America.
In his apartment with no furniture, just a TV and GMA. Like, okay, Bucky.
And yes, okay, the GMA scene was shot at the most expensive public high school I've ever seen. The thing that struck me about that wasn't even, I don't know, there are a lot of very well funded, let's say, public high schools. Really, the thing that got me was when they said that we were at his high school, I started laughing because that band, those were not high school students. That was not a high school band. That was not a high school band. Absolutely not.
I am sure you could like YouTube right now best high school bands in America, and those like really fancy, well-funded high schools. Yeah.
Have a performance on that part, but those human beings.
Gotcha.
Those human beings? No, they were our age. Okay. Like they weren't even. It was a stretch to call them college students. Okay. Like. Nah. The guy who high fives. I'm sorry, that is not a 16-year-old.
Gotcha.
Anyway.
I thought you were saying quality. I was like, wait.
No.
There's going to be some band folk that are going to be like, well, actually.
Yeah, also like the caliber of that performance was definitely like college. That was like a college band or whatever, but more than that, I just was like, it was just very funny to me, the implication that those were high schoolers. But I am getting ahead of myself because we're supposed to start with, did you like it? Did you like it?
Yes, I liked it. It is like a B, an episode like I would give grade AB. It was good. I had a few things that I was like not entirely enjoying about it, but I don't know that I have it was more like a vibe thing. Like the vibe of the show was a little bit off to me, and I guess I'm going to do my best to figure out what to explain why that was. But there were just a few moments that I was like a little like put off by certain things. But in general, like it is fine. WandaVision spoiled me. Yeah. I don't care as much about these characters, and there are some like vibe things that are off. So it was fine. I'm enjoying myself, but it wasn't amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I would broadly agree with that. I think the other thing about like the spoil of WandaVision is the degree to which like how different WandaVision was And like even up to that point, and it is very apparent as we are making our way through this rewatch that like the MCU at its best is when it is allowing each of the hero properties to exist and like to be very much their own entity. And like WandaVision said, yes, we love that, and we see you, and we raise you, and we raise you this. Whereas this feels like distinct from, you know, I don't know, what was the last thing I watched? Black Panther. This is not that. I'm in the middle of Infinity War. It's also not that. So like it is definitely not those things. It is the closest to a Captain America movie, and that makes sense. Like that's what it clearly shares the most DNA with that. But that being said, like the Captain America movies are much closer to like the Iron Man movies than like WandaVision. WandaVision felt so far removed from other things.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it this way, I do have to concede that near the bottom of my list, Doctor Strange is actually the closest, the nearest comparison actually for WandaVision probably. But anyway, all of that to say that there's an element of like, oh, this is just like this is very MCU, and it is not as like exceptionally unique and different as WandaVision was. That being said, I also, yes, I liked it. I would also give this like a B. It was not flawless, but I'm having a perfectly fine time watching this show, and I have no like major problems with it. You know, it's just that it is not going to be a new favorite thing in the way that WandaVision had already in episode 2 cemented itself as like, I think I fucking love this.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to. Was that an almost complaint?
Compliment. Yep.
A compliment, yes.
Yeah. We both have
Not
cleared
purpose.
now.
I didn't mean.
Yes.
I didn't mean to compliment Mr. Magic Boy. To be clear, sorry. Look at my flashy new feature that I've added, you guys. This is. I was trying to do that. Anyway, yeah. It's fine. It was indeed an almost compliment for Mr. Magic Boy. Don't expect it to happen again.
We both have cleared Doctor Strange in our rewatch, and I will say that I didn't like. I was expecting to dread like watching it again, and I was like, you know, it wasn't as bad as I built it up to be. So you know, take that 2 almost compliments for Mr. Magic Boy.
Yes. Okay, where should we start with this movie or this show?
Okay,
the
so
only
I
thing
think
I really want to talk about is poli-sci, and that doesn't feel like the first thing we talk about.
Here's where I think I'll start with my like big sort of feelings or the vibe that I felt was off. And I think this is going to be probably an unpopular opinion, but I feel like the banter and the humor was a little bit off. So it wasn't the lines themselves. Like the lines were funny, and I like sort of the dynamic. It almost felt like some of that, I don't know, it was trying to be like goofy and back and forthy, but in a broody way. And so like it didn't fit the mood to me of what it has created. And there were times that they were joking, like when you get the whole joke therapy scene like dropped in the middle of this episode, where I was like, we were dealing with some pretty big things. And so it didn't like flow in the way that you can have like darker, serious things with humor. It just kind of felt like plopped in. Some of their back and forth, even like when they're first going to find the flag smashers, like they're like bickering. And then all of a sudden, Sam just like, just joking, man. And I was like, wait, like, are we mad? Or are we joking? And I don't think it has found its footing quite with the tone. And like the same thing with the tone is just like we watch Buck. Like there were some things that were like we're watching Bucky watch Good Morning America, and then he just shows up at the government plane hangar and is just like, hey, Sam. And Sam's like, oh, bro, I'm going to do this mission. And Bucky's like, okay, me too. And that's how the team gets together.
And also,
and it felt like
they haven't been talking forever. The last we heard, Bucky is not answering Sam's texts.
Yes. So it just felt like they skipped so many steps to me to, one, get the team together, and two, establish this is our rapport.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is how we joke. This is what this person means to me, but this is how I treat him. And I just don't think it convinced me enough that we were at that place. It just wanted to get straight into the lines.
Yeah.
It just wanted to get straight into the quips. And then, I don't know, it just, I don't, and by the time we get to, you know, like couples therapy, I was kind of like, oh my, are you, like, it's, I see why this is funny, like, but in the context of what we're watching, it didn't sell me 100%, especially because it devolves into Bucky very seriously being like, can't you see where I'm coming from? And I'm like, whoa, this escalated quickly. I just, so that's my probably unpopular opinion. I didn't find this all that funny.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have that reaction to it, but I'm not like, I also have no, you're wrong. I have nothing to say, and you know what I mean? Like that was not my experience of it. But also I feel like for me, it was more, for me, it still just feels like the story itself is just like it's fine. I like there are like larger story things to me. I don't really mind like the character dynamic stuff. I think my feeling about that is that I agree in the confines of this show and that they skipped a lot of things. I feel like they are relying pretty heavily on like the pre-existing stuff here, in a way that is like, it's not surprising to me that it's gonna be very hit or miss in terms of how that lands with people. I
can see that in like, okay, relying on, because WandaVision did the same. WandaVision never took the time until the end to be like, Wanda and Vision love each other. Like we knew that relationship dynamic. It was so, but the relationship dynamic we know between Sam and Bucky is not them teaming together to fight crime. We needed that piece. We needed to watch that piece happen because that hasn't, I mean, they have fought together, but with Captain America as the linchpin. You know what I mean? It was never about the two of them as a team. So I just felt like we needed some sort of like them coming together that wasn't just like, hey, bro, you're mysteriously here. Don't get on this plane. Wink.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, several things going on here in the comic comments. That I am so tired, you guys.
Yeah.
It's struggling. I'm struggling to get my brain to go there. Several things. Oh, you know, I just realized one flaw in my system, my new little system, is that during the brief moment where it's asking me to like drag and select, I think it's freezing you. So my system.
So I'll just like make sure I'm on a good face.
Yeah, if you're not talking, you should be posing. That's as soon as you stop speaking, immediately.
So much pressure.
Pick your pose and commit. But anyway, the thing I wanted to point out, I think Sam and Bucky's dynamic works best when you have a straight man like Steve there to balance it out. Like Steve is sort of an essential like piece of that, and he is missing, and so without him there, they're like trying to recreate that same dynamic, and like it's not that you can't do it. It's just that I think, it's taking them a minute to figure out how best to put the two of them together without him there to gel it.
Yeah, it's a tone thing. I don't feel like I have my finger on the pulse of what the tone of this show is, and I don't know that it knows entirely either. Is the way that I felt about it. So
yes, TBD on how well this winds up working going forward. This episode, we finally got the team together. we're not sure. We're not sure how we feel yet about the team. How are you feeling about Fake Cat and that whole plot line?
So interesting, because last week we said, we had this whole thing like, is he going to be a good guy or a bad guy? Because he's kind of gone both ways from what I understand of his appearances in the comic. I think that the beginning of this episode did some work to try and kind of humanize him and be like, see, he's not a bad dude. Like he's competent. He's done really good things like within the scope of his military career. He's brave, he's courageous, and he's worried about doing a good job. You can see that he's got some buy-in in terms of doing this well. But as the episode goes on, you also get the feeling that the show is also telling you, but he's no Cap, right? Because he has those moments of like arrogance, and it's, I think, a big deal that I can't say that Captain America never shot a gun, but the way that they show him shooting a gun was like a very like zoomy cameraman, like, see this is no Captain America kind of moment. So I got the feeling that the episode wanted me to be more on the fence, like, is he good or is he bad? But I'm not on the fence at all. That man is bad. He's got a bad face.
He's got a bad face. I mean, it's very upsetting. Mari sent me a message. It's like during, she's 2 hours ahead of me, so it's still during the work day for me. It was after work for her. That was like, this man, something about his face being bad for a mask or something like that. Yes. Like, whatever. But it was just like so out of nowhere, and I like stared off into space for like 45 seconds because we're watching all of the MCU movies. Like, we've been watching all this DC stuff. I don't know. Like, earlier you had sent me the trailer for the new Suicide Squad. There have been so many men in masks. So I was like, what fucking mask guy is she talking about? But then once I got there, I was like, oh no, I know the mask guy. The one whose face is the most adversely impacted by the wearing of a mask. I mean, he's got kind of a weird face even without it. Like, he's not super, whatever. But he's, yes, like without the mask, perfectly fine. But you put the mask on his face, and there is something about the way that it sits.
It does nothing good for him. There are people who can't wear hats. They're not hat people. Their heads are not meant for. I have never in my life known that there were people whose faces are not meant for masks until I saw this man.
Well, and to be clear, his face is not meant for maybe his face is like really well suited to a pandemic mask. Like, maybe if we see him,
right?
Yeah, this
mask. He's not. This one, yeah. And listen, I understand that we are going on this tangent and it seems very shallow, but I don't care how you feel about the man's face, like what your baseline is, if he's handsome, not handsome. The material point here are the degrees to which he is worsened by a mask. And it is so many degrees. How is his face this badly impacted by a mask?
Yes, it is truly wild.
Those are my big feelings. Apart from that, however,
he has a constant snarl, like a constant snarl.
There's something very sinister about him, even when he's saying positive, nice things. I don't know, it's just like a sinister undertone. So there's nothing this show can do at this point to convince me that he might be good. I'm just like, nah, man.
No, he's somebody in the chat says he literally said, "I'm the government. Steve would never." And like, yes, like little things like that. It's pretty clear. It seems pretty clear to me at this point that that's the road he is going down is like, he is going to be bad guy. Like they set out, here's the introduction. He tried to be their friend and they wouldn't be his friend. And so now,
right.
And I'm betting that he is going to find some of that super soldier serum that's out there and be like, this is what I need to become true Captain America. And then they'll have to take him down. That's right. That's the predictions are usually, near the end, but I feel like this is being telegraphed to us pretty heavily. Yes. So that's what the show is telling me to predict. TBD if they're going to do something else, but
correct. And whether or not he'll like redeem himself like last minute or anything like that. But Yeah, I think that the big thing for him is going to be like the arrogance and like, right, he started off all like, oh, can I do a good job, and it went from that very quickly to I am the government, and on my orders you don't have to do this, and then like don't get in my way. So you see the like ego growing very quickly, and I imagine that that's going to be part of his like downfall, is just thinking that, buying into the narrative that he is Captain America sort of thing. So
okay, wait, I just have a quick question for the audience. This is another stream thing. I think everything's fine, but on my it's really weird because on my screen you are like really jittery, the screen where I'm looking at you, but then I have this little screen where I can see OBS and you don't appear to be super jittery. So I'm pointing this out to the chat. Let us know. I'll try to fix it if you are also seeing this. I think it's fine because you look fine
on
in
YouTube,
the little screen.
yeah.
Okay.
And YouTube, it looks fine.
Okay. All right. As long as everything is still...
I'm watching myself from 10 seconds ago.
I mean, and... it is helpful right now. I don't know what is happening on this monitor. It's very unpleasant to look at. So, you're just like, and I like mine. It's doing it to me too. Like the little me that I can see off to the side of you is also like, it's bad. I'm not having a good time. Anyway, as long as everything looks fine there. Yes. Sorry for that detour.
I was also moving around a lot while I was talking about John Walker and his bad face, so that was probably a really unpleasant experience for you.
Yeah, because it's like a weird, like jittery, laggy sort of thing that it's doing. So yeah. I was like, what is happening?
Chat says everything looks a-okay to them. So
great, thanks, chat. Sorry for this big technical difficulties energy stream that we're having. It's also my brain that's having technical difficulties too. So
yeah.
Okay. Fake Cap, bad guy. Talked about their dynamic.
Yep.
Is it time for me to talk about Poli Sci?
Sure.
Okay. Is there anything else I have to talk about first?
No, go for it.
So, okay. Here's the thing. We got two like very throwaway lines of Lit Poli Sci about this whole global repatriation. Now I forget what the C is. Global repatriation something. No, I'm like trying to find it. The Global Council. There we go. Global Repatriation Council. So, right. So we have that like we get introduced to it first in the Jeep, and then like the Flag Smashers mentioned it again too. I am just so delighted. It was completely unnecessary and illogical for Fake Cap's friend to include this detail that the GRC is responsible for reinstating people's social security numbers and citizenship that had nothing to do with what they were talking about. However, that's all I wanted to talk about. Like for the rest of the episode, I was just like, I'm sorry, can we run that back? And can we talk about how what he is saying is that 5 years ago, everyone was like, well, I guess all these people are dead. So, right? Like that's like a whole thing administratively that like governments have to do now is suddenly establish that half of their population is not dead anymore, and you have to make half the world's population like administratively alive again as well. And implicitly, I would assume that probably in conjunction with all of that, there's a bunch of other stuff that you have to, that like this hypothetical, that this GRC is probably also doing to facilitate like people's reintegration into society in conjunction with that. Like they specifically mention social security numbers and passports, which thrilled, love that. Very, very happy to see that happen. But also, yes, all of the implications of that, incredible.
Right.
Also,
it is because the Flag Smashers whole thing is like it was better before, and part of that seems to be like no borders or more relaxed borders or something.
Borders, yes.
So you have to imagine that some of what happened during the blip was this like, okay, all these people are dead. What does that mean administratively? And some of the answer was like, I don't know,
I don't
man.
fucking know.
Just let it happen. Just let it be. Yeah. So, and then having everybody come back, that measure of like, no. We need to get some order and control back, and we need to like reestablish things as they used to be. So
Yes. To that end, Miriam pointed out, considering how freaking difficult it is to get refugee status. Like when you think about like the systems, like these systems are not completely like fictional creations of this show, right? Like the idea, like how and where all of that like would happen. Oh no, I've done a bad thing.
oh no.
Please stand by.
Okay.
Anything? Any thoughts? You can talk. Don't I just
Oh,
can't.
okay.
Sorry, you can talk. I can't. I am looking at my screen now.
Uh-huh. Now that I have, like put on the spot about talking, I just you were in the middle of your thought. Oh, I see what you did. Yep, now I can see it on the YouTube
You see
thing.
you see what I've done. You see the mistakes that I've made.
Done. I don't want to turn away from this topic because it is your favorite thing. Right now my brain just went, what? Blip poli sci. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I did it. Okay. Okay, so to Miriam's point about how freaking like the difficulties, the systems that we have in place for like getting refugee status, like we have systems in place for saying like this is not a baby, this is a grown adult who we need to like give them a social security number, give them like to like create a citizen, an identity, like an administrative identity for and those systems are bad. Like they are currently slow and terrible and bad, and then we like they suddenly have to like unavoidably have to do this for half the world. Miriam says this is 6 months after the blip, kind of like the most Herculean effort to rebuild the entire world government. And yeah, that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I
think the other... okay, are you done with blip poli sci?
Go ahead. You can go ahead. Poli sci, this is not a baby.
Put that on our merch. And so the other thing that this episode continues to kind of explore are like the racial undertones of everything that is going on in terms of what Sam is facing, or kind of what we're starting to understand more of his like thinking in terms of why he would turn down the shield, why him being Black Captain America, like Black Falcon, would be something that like not everybody around him is thinking, especially not Bucky. Bucky's just like, how could you, without really thinking through all of the implications. Even as Bucky brings him to a Black super soldier who defeated him and then was imprisoned and experimented on for 30 years with absolutely no, that we can tell, gratitude from his country. And this is a character that exists in the comics, and from what I understand, it was like a program that experimented on 300 Black soldiers who all eventually died, and this character was the only one who survived. So for Bucky to be like, but why'd you turn it down? Like, oh, buddy, yeah, you're like, and I get it. That's like the right, I don't know, not the right, but it feels like natural storytelling for Bucky not to understand where Sam is coming from. But I appreciate the show for the inclusion of that, and like the sort of acknowledgement that they are going to navigate this, yes, the undertones became overtones very much so here. And I think I liked that moment better with the super soldier a little more than like the moment right after where they go outside and they're surrounded by police. That felt a little, a little less graceful, but I also understand, yes, I understand why they did that moment too. So all of these ways that they're like, okay, what would it mean for the next Captain America to be Black? I'm enjoying them so far. And I think that even in smaller moments of like watching, okay, they didn't say, Sam, do you want to be Captain America? They obviously went with this other white man with blonde hair and blue eyes or whatnot. And they gave him a Black sidekick too. And they're like, now the package is complete and go be off on your way. I was just like, oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, you messaged me about that as you like when you got to that moment, and I was like in the middle of something. But I was like I couldn't tell how much of what you were reacting to was like the show doing it versus like in universe. And yes.
Yes. It is this. That's not commentary on the show making that decision.
Yes.
The show made that decision because the government made that decision.
The government absolutely 100% would make that decision.
Correct. And it is mirrored in just even in what Fake Cap says to them, like, you're the sidekicks, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, all right, buddy, with your bad mask face. So I was having those feelings, but the show wanted me to.
Because you're the least handsome man in this Jeep. Just bitter. You gotta wear that fucking mask. It makes you even less so. So anyway.
So yes, that is one thing that I'm genuinely like hyped for, is to see how this continues to explore that, because I think in a lot of ways, like Sam's journey to becoming captain, if that's where this is headed, or becoming a superhero, is his like contending with this part of it, like trying to work out what that would mean for him to exist as a Black man and be this person. Whereas some of the contention I would assume that Bucky feels is like, not, like Cap said, you can do it. He picked you and he believed in you. And some of that is also probably like Bucky, like, I believe in you. You can do this. Like, you're a good. And so he's not seeing what Sam is necessarily processing. So
right.
I love that journey. If they do that, continue to do that well, like I'm excited to see that journey.
Yeah, I also am really enjoying. I mean, I'm glad there at the beginning. This is when we talked about this last week too. That it was just like, okay, like this is clearly there, unclear. From like the first episode, it was not entirely clear how the degree to which they were actually going to like follow that through, because like we got it mostly in like Sam's life, and then sort of like again, to the undertones became overtones, right? Like there were undertones of like how this could connect to the superhero stuff, but this episode they were like, no, yes, we are absolutely, that is part of the show, which yes. That is an on the floor bar for them to step over, to acknowledge, to have their superhero show with a Black protagonist acknowledge the implications of being a Black superhero. But I am glad that they're doing it, and so far it seems like they're trying to explore it thoughtfully.
Right. It is not the most like nuanced thing in the world, I would say. Like, Black man gets denied for loan, Black man gets surrounded by police,
harassed
like,
by cops.
Yes, it's not like the most, intricate, detailed, nuanced take that you will ever see. But honestly, like, I'm like, you're acknowledging it. Right. I know, bars on the floor kind of thing, but also like I think it's a big deal in order. That they considered that this would be a huge part of Sam's story,
I also think too, like the examples, the extremely like the non-nuanced, the very like I don't know, like obvious, I guess, sort of things that we have seen in like the loan, the cops. Those are like the real world things, and this is something we talked about last week. Like that is. Like the thing that this show is poised to do particularly well or the thing that the show is uniquely poised to address is the question of like him as a superhero. Like that is the thing that is like a unique sort of space. And so it seems right. So like the real worldly pieces of it, like that, those are the places where it is just like, yes, this is bad. Like it's establishing, reminding people like bad institutionally in the real world, independent of like for non-superhero reasons. But like the thing that I am hoping, and it seems like the show is maybe is going to maybe handle a little bit with a little bit more nuance, is like the superhero questions, like what are those kinds of implications.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I would not come here looking for the super detailed nuanced take, like about this or anything. This is still a Marvel property,
Right.
and you know what I mean, like, and sort of like built into a lot of these superhero things are like a lot of these ideas that we're talking about sort of exaggerated, like put on in a spectacle sort of way, big punchy kicky, big problems in your face sort of thing. And so I think it feels like, I don't know, it's telling its story evenly in that way, you know.
Mm.
And again, this is, if I were looking for a nuanced take on what it means to be a black man in America, I wasn't going to turn on an MCU property in the first place. So
Right. Yes. Yeah. I think that is like a really a very important point. Just in terms of like critiquing the show for the thing that it's actually trying to do. You know, like
correct.
that's the super nuanced take is also not the objective of a show who's like big you know, the driving plot is there's a magic serum out there that's people are injecting to get super strong. Like that's the
Right.
right, like okay.
Yeah.
So
And that, I mean, underlying themes in this like are good versus evil. And when you get shades of gray, like if you get shades of gray, it's like, okay, this once bad person is now good. That's just like shades of gray that you get and sort of thing. So they're very like clear cut lines, themes, big themes. I don't know. I again, I just think it kind of fits with the rest of the story that we're telling.
yes, it is inherently and intentionally tropey. Like that's not, and it is not trying to not be that. And yeah, I think that if that is a problem for you, then like superhero stuff in general is not going to be your jam.
Yeah.
So, um, okay. Well, do you have anything else to say about this episode? Any other thoughts, feelings, hopes, dreams, expectations?
I don't know if we talked about it. What is the flag? We've been talking about the flag smashers, but another thing that this episode did, I think that it's going to try and humanize them a little bit more as well, in terms of them not just being like terrorists, but you know, they get called Robin Hood and this sort of thing, and they were stealing vaccines or other resources for people. So what started off as being like presented to us as like this terrorist organization is now like, well, they're trying to help people. And then there's some other shadowy big bad that is like threatening the Robin Hood like sort of thing. So I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was interesting that Sam was kind of the one that was like, I don't know, man, maybe they're not that bad. So I thought that was cool.
Yes, yeah. I think if you're going to have like a big sort of like a dispersed, like non-singular face, like kind of faceless. I mean, we get this woman who kind of seems to be like the leader, but like it's not her, right? Like it's an institution. They have their, what is it? One species. What's their little
One
mantra?
people.
One species.
What? Oh man, I just
Whatever.
watched
It
this.
doesn't. Yeah. The whole thing is,
the blank,
like
the blank
humanity.
looks that just passed over both our faces as we tried to think of this. I'm sorry you guys had to see our awful thinking faces live.
It's, you know, this is where we're at tonight.
Yeah.
To this point in the stream, I feel like it's clear this is where we're at tonight. We'll try to be better next week. But yeah, in order to do that, then you also have to like really contextualize that as like, this is a large swath of the population. One people, one world. Thank you, Laura Strong. Yeah, but like giving like some more context for that, and for like that it is more complicated. Again, like why the blip poli sci stuff is so fascinating to me is that like there are probably lots of like there are like legitimate and like non-nefarious, non like power hungry reasons why this like people like the unblip or whatever, like the second snap, would have negatively changed things for many of the people who had spent the last 5 years like, you know, rebuilding and like finding a way to live and exist in this new world, and that like that things are also probably very difficult for them. And it is not surprising to me that administratively and like governmentally and in terms of like process stuff, that everybody's concern would be half the world's population has just reappeared, and we don't understand how to fit them into our systems. It makes sense to me that that would be like, all of this tracks, right? Like it tracks to me that that is what would happen. That like as a consequence of that, that governments would like fail the half of the population that had, you know, had been there all along. On this question of governments, I also have like so many questions about what happens in like governmental where like power has transitioned in places, and like what happens when somebody who had a certain measure of power disappeared and reappears. That I have thoughts on, or I'm curious about, right? But and anyway, the point is that of the half the world's population that was left behind, it is unsurprising that any of them who were in like a particularly garbage position pre-blip, I am not surprised that many of them were able to build better lives over the course of that 5 years, lives that were massively and like negatively disrupted by this moment in time. So yeah, so like just acknowledging that that is a thing. I mean, they're clearly going to like, they're going to be a terrorist organization. I don't think that we're ever going to humanize them to the point of like, they're right. We're watching all of the MCU stuff right now, as we have mentioned repeatedly, and we've been talking a lot about because we're us, all of the ways that we can eventually make this decision that we've made content. The reason we started doing it is like because we're going to record a podcast episode about WandaVision this weekend, and so we were like, okay, we'll do all of this before we both independently decided that we wanted to rewatch the MCU movies before rewatching WandaVision, to talk about it, and but then like we were watching all of the MCU movies, so we're like, okay, well maybe we'll do another live stream about it during the like off time or whatever. But also we've been talking about like posts. So we have this like in our chat now, this sort of ongoing list of like basically like listicles we can make from our MCU viewing. But this Villain's Got a Point is one of our big lists, and it feels to me already like this group would fit, I mean, not the top of the list, but this group will make the list of this will make the Villain's Got a Point list. I feel like they have, there's something going on here that I'm like, okay, like I get it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like maybe don't do murders, but
right. That's where you take your point and you just go, oh, a little too far. And then you start doing murders.
Yeah.
Yes, with villains.
So many of them do have a point, but then they do murders for their point, and I'm like, well, okay.
You lost me.
Because I mentioned earlier that the last thing that I watched was Black Panther, and like one of the earliest scenes with Killmonger is him murdering his girlfriend, and it's like, this is the movie, like this man we know Villain's got a point, so we just want to make sure you know he's a bad man.
Yes.
Just gonna put that out there, make that clear, because the rest of his actions are all gonna be, I don't know,
kind of understandable.
So, yeah. Anything
I think
else?
that's it for real. For real.
Somebody in the chat said, I wonder what old man Bucky will re-traumatize in episode 3. It's becoming a pattern. So,
I love that. I hope at least one person every episode. He's going to therapy, but also going out in the world and re-traumatizing a bunch of people. Amazing.
Incredible. Yeah. So womp. Maybe don't do that, Bucky. Yeah, but I think this is actually it. Unless there's anything else to say in the chat. But we will.
You know.
What were you gonna say? Go ahead.
I'm proud of us. It was a little patchy there, but we both had weeks at work, and we're, we did it. We did it. We did words.
Just such a week. Was it a week or was it 84 years? I cannot tell you. It was a bad time. And I'm happy that it's over. So happy that it's over, and happy that I got to decompress from my bad time with all of you. There's another excellent addition to this, is a recommendation for our listicle on the villains. The 3 Marvel villains. You have a point: government bad and literal Nazis. Yep. That's it. Those are your options. We got the 3 the big 3, whatever, the big 3 sort of running joke in this episode. That's like on the, you know, the power side of things, but like the villain, the Marvel villain scale is, you got a point, government bad, and literal Nazis.
I love that.
What a great note. What a great note on which to end this live stream. Thank you guys, and
Thanks for joining us.
See you next week. Bye.
Yes. Bye.